Так, шановні колеги, шановні журналісти, радий вас вітати сьогодні в стінах Міністерства закордонних справ. Особливо приємно
And it's a real pleasure to welcome here my colleague from Latvia and my friend Baiba Braže in Kiev. It's her first visit of Baiba since her appointment in 2024, and I always say that it's a real sign of courage and solidarity, especially in the such difficult times we live here in our country. From the very first days of the large-scale war, Latvia provides continuous support in all spheres: military, financial, humanitarian, and sanction. And we are really grateful for this solidarity. We also thank you annual defense assistance at a level of 0.25% of Latvian GDP, and the amount over these years has reached more than 1.6%. It covers weapons, ammunition, military training, financial support. We also thank you, Latvia, for joining the Pearl initiative and also for a recent sending of 42 APCs Patria 6x6. The visit of my colleague was long planned, but it took place at very intense diplomatic activity times. And I've informed Baiba about American propositions that we've received last week, and about the work of our teams. And Ukraine will seek every possible opportunity to seek the ways to end the war. And I emphasized the role of Europe in these peace efforts. We coordinated our first further steps, and I'm thankful for Baiba's advice and stance. We maintain personal contact, and I appreciate it personally. And as never, we need our advice of our partners and coordination. We've also paid attention to increasing pressure on Moscow to force it to peace, and also to provide and approve as soon as possible the robust 20th sanction package of the European Union and on frozen Russian assets. And I still see the potential to increase pressure against the aggressor. And also we have to approve and agree the decision to fully use frozen Russian assets, so-called reparation loan. So let's continue to work and to consolidate the support of these important decisions. So I am thankful again for measures to counter sanction evasion also. And we will coordinate further steps to counter tanker fleet of Russian Federation. The Baltic Sea must not facilitate blood oil revenues of Russia that still brings considerable environmental risks. We also discussed defense priorities for next years, especially on joint production and technology transfer between Ukraine and Latvia. We appreciate Latvia for training Ukrainian military, for caring for our wounded defenders, and we thank you for your leadership in the drone coalition. And Latvia this year provided 12,000 drones, and we've discussed the ramping up of production for 2026. We've paid special attention to support of our energy sector, since Russian strikes caused a significant damage this year, and this support is critically important to support our energy resilience. Dear Baiba, I thank you especially for Latvia to support Chernihiv communities to rebuild its critical and civil infrastructure, for receiving our children on vacations in Latvia, and the amount of the support was 5.7 million euros. Yesterday, Baiba visited Chernihiv, and we opened 2 sites there, built at the Latvian expense: a pediatric unit of the Chernihiv hospital and Center for Human Rights in the region. We highly appreciate these efforts. Baiba told me her impressions, how she spoke to the community, to the defenders in that region, and that's very important that our foreign guests and delegations of high level visit regions because they see the reality and they feel the real challenges the Ukrainians live every day. We are very glad that Latvia is a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council. I think for me it was almost Ukraine has achieved this, and it opens for us additional opportunities, and we've discussed the possibility of joint decisions and actions at the UN. And President of Ukraine has also spoke about that. We've presented a respective resolution to the General Assembly of UN about returning of Ukrainian children. And here we have also full support of Latvia as well as about other initiatives that will be provided at the UN together with Ukraine. And thank you, and pass the floor to you, Baiba. Дорогий Андрія, дорогі друзі, дуже дякую за те, що
When I was appointed in 24 April, my first bilateral visit was to Ukraine, and we have met in Lviv, we have met in Odessa, but now I'm back in Kiev, and it's great to be here. And I pay respects to all Ukrainians fighting on the front, but also to all Ukrainians providing support to the soldiers. So making sure that Ukraine, as a strong, democratic, resilient country, fully sovereign, is able to defend herself. So respect to you, Ukrainians. And for our bilateral relations, they are perfect. We don't have any bilateral issues. We have quite a bit of trade that is ongoing, and our task bilaterally is also to make sure that that relationship is not lost, because of course the private sector is what sustains also the rest of the GDP, including of the economy of Ukraine. Of course we give a lot of aid, but still Ukrainian economy, Latvian economy, and our private sector have lots of interest to work together and extend the collaboration on the drone production and other military and civilian parts. The current challenges that Ukraine faces, and Ukraine is not alone in all of that. Ukraine has friends and allies. And making sure that also through the peace, so-called peace talks, Russia doesn't get what it wants to get on the battlefield. So making sure that Ukraine's self-defense capabilities, that Ukraine's agency in any peace deal is maintained is crucially important. So we fully support the US efforts to get to peace through strength, and of course we back Ukraine in its need to care about its future and make sure that full sovereignty, democracy, and strong institutions and strong military force is maintained. For the other issues related to the EU or NATO, of course, that is not part of the bilateral discussions with Russia. That is something for the EU and NATO to decide, and that's where I leave it at that. The resolution and other efforts on the abducted children by Russia, we will stand by these efforts. We provide practical help. We will provide political help, of course, at the UN and elsewhere. And I commend the work of your ombudsman, but also other colleagues, also international partners who do all the practical, very difficult work of locating children and returning them to their parents. So that work will continue at all levels. The same about the prisoners of war, about those that are tortured and disappeared. And that's why also on accountability and international efforts on justice, our work will maintain strong. we're working with Ukraine, but also international partners to make sure that the special tribunals, that the registry and so on and so forth is implemented and comes into force. Our aid to Ukraine, we regard that it's something that is self-understandable. We don't have to explain why we are doing that. Ukraine is defending herself in accordance with the UN Charter, and every nation in the world should feel that they have a part in defending, in allowing Ukraine to defend herself, but also ensuring that Ukraine has sufficient self-defense capabilities. So more than half of our 1 billion assistance is military assistance in various ways. A lot of enabling assistance, a lot of energy, infrastructure support, variety of things I can't even mention. And then, of course, the so-called Pearl initiative within NATO, where there is a special fund that the Secretary General has created from which the US weapons then are purchased. So we have given our share to that, and we will continue. You mentioned drone coalition, next year 50 million from us to make sure that there is sufficient capability, but also that the newest scientific and innovative research that is done is implemented on the battlefield and allows Ukraine to defend herself. We also allocated additional 5 million euros 2 days ago to make sure that there are other capabilities and also additional resources for Ukrainian soldiers' rehabilitation in Latvia. The 42 Patria armored carriers that have been given by Latvia to your armed force, I met some of the brave Ukrainian soldiers who are on them, and they say it's the best that they have had, so I'm very happy to hear that. We will continue training Ukrainian troops, 4,000 per year. If necessary, we can step it up. And we have also, for the first time, taken NATO's military hospital, so-called Renovator project, as one of ours under our responsibility to reconstruct. And SATU Trust Fund, obviously we are there. But also, what it means for Ukraine is that Ukraine works with all the NATO's allies in practice, which brings interoperability, which brings a lot of practical knowledge how NATO allies work. And you know, whenever the decision on the enlargement or not comes, our position is clear. We do support Ukraine's NATO membership when it's there, but to be ready, to be interoperable, and to make all the preconditions done so that whenever political conditions are ripe, Ukraine can join both the EU but also NATO. And a couple of words on Chernihiv. Indeed, we have chosen Chernihiv as one of our regions where we provide support, but we also do it in other regions. And it was very moving to see both how resilient people are. Yes, it's not easy. The energy and electricity is often not there because of the Russian strikes, but people are committed. They are working, they are doing the things that they need to. And we also had the opportunity to meet the children at the music school, college, who have learned the Latvian song because they have been in music camps in Latvia throughout the years. And also the instruments were donated by our musicians, and it was really very moving to listen to them in a shelter in Chernihiv, the same as visiting the other projects. On the other big priorities, you would have heard me already. It's making sure that we ourselves as allies, as countries both in NATO, EU, but also around the world are strong, that we invest in defense and security, because the threat, Russia threat, is not going to disappear. All the assessments are there that the trajectory of Russia is not going to change, so making sure that we as strong countries also have strong deterrence defense capabilities will also help supporting Ukraine in the future. Second big priority, making sure that Ukraine is able to ensure its self-defense, but also move towards politically on the track and practically to the EU and NATO, but also making sure that Ukraine has all the global support. So I'm thankful for your support on the UN Security Council. Candidature will be there for the first time. That will be a big work for our diplomatic service, and we very much look forward relying also on Ukrainian professional knowledge. And then the third big pillar, they are all interrelated, obviously, is weakening Russia and weakening Russian capability to fight the war, and that's everything. That's the sanctions, that's the oil, shadow fleet, the ecosystem, that's other exports that Russia is doing, whether that's fertilizers or others, but it's also this international isolation. Russia has not been elected in a number of very important organizations, and just earlier this week, Russia was not elected to the Organization on Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. So that's something that we think is important, where the global society shows that they know what Russia is doing. There are countries that might not be giving weapons to Ukraine, but they show with their voting what is happening de facto and their evaluation of the situation. So once again, great to be here, and I think we have explained everything. There will be no questions anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellencies. We still have a few questions, very brief ones, I promise. And we will start with Latvian radio.
Дуже дякую, Індр Спранца, Латвійське радіо. У мене запитання до пану Сибіхи. На вашу думку,
Mr. Sybiha, how do you see, how is it real to sign a peace deal during continuous Russian strikes on Ukrainian cities? We welcome the efforts of Trump to end the war of Russia against Ukraine. We thank our European partners for supporting our efforts on this way, and Ukraine, as nobody here, is interested to accelerate peace efforts to achieve a just peace. It's our national interest, and according to this interest, we work within our negotiating team continues to work. It maintains contacts with Americans, and I think soon we shall see our further contacts with them to discuss concrete targeted moves on how to achieve a just peace for Ukraine. Now Interfax Ukraine. Valeria from Interfax and our... Дякуємо вам за латвійську підтримку.
The short question, what practical steps Latvia is ready to provide to Ukraine? І наступне запитання до Андрія Івановича. Ви згадали щойно контакти між Україною та
Next question for Sybiha.
Оскільки пан Дріскол прибуде до
Mr. Driscoll will come to Ukraine, what was confirmed by Mr. Yermak. So what are your expectations, and shall we expect high-level contacts? Щодо гарантій безпеки, ми підтримуємо також ці наміри.
Ensure that there is such a guarantee, but it also depends. It very much depends on the practical military advice. So, in the previous iteration of work, our chiefs of defenses of the coalition of willing had come together, and there is a proposal on the table. So, depending on what type of arrangement there is at the end of these talks, it will also then depend on the adjustment of the security guarantee and what type of solution. But we are ready to play our role, and we have said that that's why we are in the coalition of the willing. But it depends again on the practical military advice. It's not for politicians to decide what should be where and how and so on and so forth.
На ваше запитання підтверджую, що найближчим часом слід очікувати зустрічі
Soon we
переговорних
shall
команд.
expect the meeting between negotiation teams, and we expect to see concrete results. We expect to see progress. It's critically important for us, and Ukraine has shown that we want to reach a ceasefire. And surely we do everything possible. Our teams, all diplomatic efforts are focused to provide this peace process. Of course, we are interested at high-level contacts and in the meeting between Zelensky and Trump, because there are still sensitive questions that must be discussed and can be discussed only at that high level.
The last one, short one to Latvian television, please.
Як ми можемо забезпечити більше європейської підтримки? І що можна очікувати?
Ну, для нас важливо сейф-програма.
It's important for us to have a safe program so that Ukraine holds a strong position in this program designed within the EU. In November, we'll send proposals to European capitals. It's important also to receive a positive decision about, as for reparation loan. It is a practical use of frozen assets, also to expand the program Pearl. And other issues that is important is our way to the EU membership, and also our bilateral cooperations with different partners, including defense sector, that today has this foundation when Ukraine has the experience to improve and to strengthen European security.
And for me, I think the important part is that, again, Ukraine is fighting under UN Charter Article 51, right to self-defense, which means that those countries that provide weapons, that provide enabling capabilities, don't become party to the war, because it's a self-defense. And even when Ukraine strikes Russia, it's self-defense, the military objects. So it's important that it's not just European countries providing aid to Ukraine. The whole world, in our view, should provide and support Ukraine. It can be military support, it can be financial support, it can be humanitarian support, medical support, energy support, financial support, political support. It's all, I mean, we are on the same earth. So everybody has to do its share. And I think for Europeans especially, also for neutral countries, they are well off, they can do more. They can do more. It's for the collective security that we are doing that. And indeed, the immediate steps is extending the term for the frozen assets. It's making sure that the sanctions are strengthened, that new tariffs on Russia, Belarus are imposed, and that also the military equipment and energy infrastructure support equipment is provided in the soonest time. So those would be the immediate steps. But as I said, there is a wide enabling need in that all. We are all part of humankind. We have all signed up for the same principles in the UN, where the change of borders by force is not acceptable.
Можливо, я ще доповню. Важливо нарощування тиску на агресора, на
Important to increase pressure on the aggressor, on Russia, so that with every day passing, especially personally for Putin and for his pressure, the cost of the war, the cost of the further aggression increases for them. And it's important to pass and to approve the 20th sanction package. We have concrete ideas, especially to counter and to impose sanctions against oligarchs. We sent some details to European and the list to European countries. So we suggest to expand this list of oligarchs and their supporters. So not only Putin, but everybody who is beside him has to pay for the aggression. Another important point, as Baiba has said, is to use the tariffs as instruments. Today we see imports from Belarus and from Russia to the EU, and there are some items that are difficult to be negotiated. We understand it, but we see the instrument as imposing of tariffs on some products. So we see here a potential to further deprive Russian military machine on receiving additional revenues, and it will cut the revenue. І це існує тільки одна людина між Трампом і миром в Україні. Це м'ясник в Росії.
Thank you, Excellencies, and thank you, media. At this we conclude. Thank you.